Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry about that little glitch. Some of you guys maybe jumped in or jumped out, but sometimes YouTube does what Jonathan wants, and sometimes YouTube does what YouTube wants. And that was just a moment of YouTube doing what YouTube wanted. So, hey, welcome. So glad to be back with you guys. My name is Jonathan, and I serve here with Chi Alpha. It is really a lot of fun to be doing these community cores. So if you don't know what that is, basically, if you're watching online or if you're here in this room with me, that there are little community cores, little pockets of people having these conversations all over campus. And I was just kind of thinking about something while we were worshiping, that one day, probably really soon, hopefully the next semester, that we'll all be gathered back together as a big family. And that's going to be fantastic, and that's something that we're looking forward to. But I was just thinking during worship how sweet it is to have these smaller groups right now, even though it may not seem ideal. The interaction and the community that we can build while this is more intimate is way cooler than when we're all together and it's a little more difficult, right? Sometimes I think we spend so much time thinking about what we're looking forward to or what we don't have that we miss the value of the things that we do. So welcome to Community Course for T3, where we're just going to talk together honestly, and want to encourage you guys, if you're in the chat, if you're watching somewhere else, I would love for you guys to go ahead and jump on the stream, because what makes this really valuable is when we're able to talk together, to interact. So the people that are in the room are going to interact with me live in this room. But if you're not in the room and you're just watching online, hey, go ahead and pull it up on your phone or something so that you can be commenting in the chat as we're asking questions, and we'll kind of engage a little bit that way too. But your conversation is going to make this richer. So regardless of where you're at with Jesus, I don't want you to feel because you're looking at other people's comments or whatever that like, oh, I don't believe like them, I can't communicate, or I can't talk, or I can't share. That's nonsense. Cool. So feel free to jump in and to be involved regardless of where you are on the spectrum of commitment to Jesus or not commitment to Jesus. Maybe you came because you got some nice hot coffee. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm sick of being in my room. Guess I'm gonna go hang with these people. They're strange. Doesn't matter. Thanks for coming. All right. Thank you for being here, and thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to go ahead and get started. So for the last several weeks, a lot of last semester, we've been having this conversation based upon some of Jesus's teaching called the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is a super famous passage of Scripture, probably one of the most famous passages of Scripture, so famous that oftentimes it's even in secular literature books. It's just really beautifully written. Some of the thoughts and some of the ideas that are in there are just really just sweet and culturally challenging. So Jesus has this whole big, long 7 chapters, or 3 chapters in the Bible where he's doing this teaching. And we've been going through the very beginning section of them. Those are called the Beatitudes. Each week, we kind of dissect, we pull it apart, try to figure out what each of the components mean, and then put it back together, okay? So each of them kind of feels a little weird. Like when you read it, the literal thing doesn't always make a lot of sense. So we've been taking some time with them, and we know, you guys that have been tuning in with us, or if this is your first time, these lists of Beatitudes are basically some of the qualities that Jesus is looking for in a follower. So it's not like a list of qualifications, you must be this. But if you're following Jesus, these are the sorts of things that should be being produced in your life. They should be kind of like characteristics that start to develop, all right? So we're going to go ahead and jump into that conversation. But before we do that, I've got a couple thoughts that I'd like to hear from you about, okay? You ready? So guys, in the chat, the first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to you personally to be true to what you believe? So 1 being like not very important, and 10 being like there's nothing more important. How important is it to you to be true to what you believe? You guys in the room, what do you think? How important? What number?
10.
10. Nothing more important. Robbie also. What else? 10? 9. Maybe there's a little bit of flux there. Thank you just not for following the 10s. We're getting some 9s and some 10s. I can't pronounce all those zeros that's in the chat. Lots of 10s. Caitlin, what do you think?
I probably like an 8.
An 8? So it's on that half, but okay, you're giving yourself some some wiggle room. This is fantastic. It's coming up in the chat. 7, I appreciate that. That's good. All right, I'm gonna just kind of ask something, and I'm not trying to be combative, but I'm just curious to see how this plays out, right? So, does anyone pray before they eat? If you guys pray before you eat your food, would you throw a hand emoji in the chat? Does anybody in the room? Yeah, a couple of us still. We're teaching my son to do it, and it's so funny. It doesn't matter what meal we're having, that when we're praying over the food, he thanks God for pizza and pancakes. Like, that is his gateway to heaven, pizza and pancakes. We're doing nightly prayers, pizza. God, thank you for pizza. Like, dude, you're so freaking cute. So yeah, we're seeing some hands. Okay, so then my follow-up question is, if you guys are the folks that pray before you eat, have you ever not done it when you were with people that didn't believe? And if you've not done it, if you're the person that does do it, but you didn't do it when you were with people that didn't believe, why? Robbie, you were not.
I was trying not to like impose myself, my beliefs on them, and like intend not to offend someone. But like that was.
That makes a lot of sense. She's saying that she didn't want to impose her beliefs on somebody. She didn't want to like force her way or force her opinion. I get that. I'm seeing pride. I just forgot. Quentin, that's me. Oh, Jesus, please. I'm so sorry. I just ate that spaghetti and I didn't say Lord. And I do all the things. Yeah, totally. Yes. Anybody else? Have you ever, I know you raised your hand. Do you ever not?
Yeah, I feel like it's nice for Robbie to just kind of like, no, looking up, like, make you uncomfortable if that's not your thing, or stuff like that.
Okay, so you're trying not to make people comfortable and stuff. I feel like no matter how macho we are, like the toughest of the tough guys out there, sometimes there's pressure between people when they believe and they live by different standards. When we're with people or around people, or we believe and then we live differently. And that's a little bit where this beatitude kind of hits tonight. That's where it's going to hit us, all right? We are in Matthew 5, verse 10. Let me read it for you. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So I didn't bring my little whiteboard today. A really good reason. There's a really good reason why I didn't bring my whiteboard. Yeah, I forgot it. I just totally forgot. All right, but it's coming back. It'll be back next week. But check your Bible apps or whatever. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So let's take a second and let's kind of pull it apart, each of those different components, and then put it back together, okay? So this word blessed, anybody remember what blessed means? We've talked about it each week. This word blessed isn't just like bless your heart, right? There's more to it than that. What is this word blessed? Happy in a lasting sense. Fantastic. So we're not just talking about like you'll glow, but there's going to be a deep sense of joy. So when we're reading this beatitude, when we look at blessed, it's talking about like an everlasting happiness. Fantastic. But there are 3 other little parts of this that we need to hone in on. The first one is persecuted. We have kind of a general definition of persecuted, but let me hone in on, in the scriptural context, it's talking about being mistreated, caused to like flee or run away, or generally made uncomfortable, okay? So when we're talking about this idea of persecuted, kind of hone in on those 3 kind of points, that you're mistreated, that you're caused to like run away or flee, or just generally made uncomfortable. Persecuted is all of that in a nutshell. So it says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. And righteousness is a super spiritual word, right? We throw it around, or people that are religious throw it around, but a lot of times we don't have a clue what it means, but it's really central to what we're going to talk about. So when you think righteousness, it's way simpler than righteousness. It's just living out God's standards. So whenever you hear someone, even in this context or other contexts, when you're talking about righteousness, really simply, it's talking about living out God's standards. Even people sometimes will say that it's just right standing with God. Cool? So righteousness, living out God's standards. And then the kingdom of heaven is a little bit of a recurring theme, isn't it? We've seen it in some of the Beatitudes that this idea of you'll inherit the kingdom of heaven kind of comes up. And really that's just it's a catchphrase that Jesus is bringing and he's helping to introduce to people. And basically what he's saying is everything that actually matters. When he says the kingdom of heaven, he's talking about everything that actually matters. There's more to it than that, but in a simple kind of context, that's where we are. So let's review really quick. So we've got, you will be blessed, joy like in a lasting sense, when you are persecuted, so mistreated, made uncomfortable, because of righteousness, living out my standards, because those folks, yeah, they're going to inherit everything that actually matters. Let me put it all together for you just in a simple kind of Jonathan version. Are you ready? You'll have an incredible type of lasting joy when people are jerks to you. Not just jerks for no reason, but they're jerks as a result of you living out your faith. Because that matters more than anything. Not people being jerks, but living out your faith. Check this out. If these are Jesus's lists of qualities in his disciples, where's the quality that he's looking for? Is it that we're persecuted? That seems kind of weird, right? If you're my disciple, then you're going to be persecuted. Just that's what we're looking for. Just like smart also have to be persecuted. There's something that's a little bit different about this one that I want us to catch. You decide for yourself. I'm going to kind of share what I see all of this saying, and then you decide whether you think that this is on point or not. But to me, it looks like what Jesus is saying, that in this world, the two, persecuted and righteousness, aren't separate things. They're the same thing. In our world today, righteousness is connected to persecution. Think about it this way. Have any of you guys ever made s'mores over a fire? It's the funnest thing to watch. Everyone has their own technique. Everybody put fire in the chat if you've made some s'mores, if that's like a favorite pastime. My wife, if she's watching right now, is salivating just hearing the word s'more. All right, I need to hear one or two people in the room. What's your technique? Everybody's got a technique to make like the perfect s'more. What do you got? Yo.
Justin McGregor taught this to me, but you take the s'more and you don't get it too close to the fire, or I'm sorry, the marshmallow, too close to the fire, and you let it like become golden brown and not burnt. The moment it's burnt, it's ruined. But if you make it golden brown, really fluffy, then that's how you make the s'more.
Okay, so you're getting that marshmallow close to the fire, but you don't want it all like burnt and crispy. You just kind of, okay, that's good. What do you got, Caitlin?
So I put the marshmallow in, I burn it. It's off, burn, eat it. Put the chocolate on top while it's hot inside. Put it on it again.
Girl, this is actually what I'm talking about. Everybody's got their own story, and we're all ready to put our hand on a Bible and swear by it. She said that she puts hers in the, ready, you guys take notes. She puts her marshmallow in the fire, burns that sucker, catches it on fire, takes it out, blows it, eats the crispy off, puts it on the thing, throws that whole sucker back in there, and then she's like, bam, got it. Hey, shout out to my lady Jordan Overenshire. She changed my life with s'mores. I'm not a s'more guy, but she said, you know what you could do with s'mores? It's really awesome, is you remove the Hershey's and add a Reese's. And I'm like, oh, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But check this out. Righteousness, you're gonna love this. Righteousness is like the marshmallow. And the world is like the campfire. When you put the marshmallow into the fire reacts to it. When you demonstrate righteousness in our world, the world will react to it. And I think Jesus is telling his disciples to be prepared for that reaction to be persecution. If you put a marshmallow in the fire will react to it. There's no question. If you have a marshmallow that you are shoving in the fire and the fire does nothing to it, take it out. You need to bottle or protect that thing. That is a special, like Super Saiyan marshmallow, okay? Ordinary marshmallows in the fire reacts to it. God's standards or righteousness is always going to be in conflict with secular standards. That's just how it works. If we're going to talk about like God's standards, what are some examples? What are a couple examples of God's standards? You can throw them in the chat if you'd like. A couple things that you think of. If someone said like, hey, what's one of God's standards? What comes to mind?
Do not murder.
Don't murder. Don't kill folks. Don't be trying to run over grandmas at Walmart in your car. That's wrong. God doesn't like that. I see in the chat, no sex before marriage. Fantastic. Yep. What else? What are some of God's standards, things that come to mind?
Well, everybody.
Love them. Love people. Even suckers that are jerks to you. Love them. Good. Maybe one or two more. Don't be greedy. I see that's good. Put him first. Fantastic. What else?
Don't steal.
Don't steal. Don't take other people's stuff. I think when you read it in the 10 Commandments, it's really, really fun. If you guys haven't done that in Exodus, you need to. But it's like, don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't covet his donkey. Don't covet his, like, don't want their things. Don't take their things. Fantastic. So those are like godly standards. All right, what are some worldly standards? Some just kind of secular, these are normal, kind of accepted things to do. Have sex before marriage. How do you know if they're any good if you haven't tried them out? Some of you guys are acting offended right now, but you know that's what people say. And you know that's what some of you suckers thought or think. You got to live with somebody for a little while. How do you know if you're going to really like them? What are some other standards?
You can lie if you really have to. There's a good reason for it.
Oh, yeah. As long as it's like a really good reason, go ahead and lie. If your reason's good, lie through your teeth. That's fantastic. Some good ones are coming up in the chat. Do whatever you want. If it feels good, do it, right? I think the one that's challenging to me, if you want anything or if you ever want to make anything of yourself, you've got to make it happen. The American dream, like work hard and you can have whatever you want and all that sort of stuff. Jesus says that a servant, he's not greater than his master. And he says further in John 15 that if they persecuted me, Jesus, they're going to persecute you for following. When you represent something that's contrary to popular opinion, society is going to pray for your downfall. It always has been that way, and it probably always will be that way. You don't believe me? How do people usually act when someone represents an unpopular opinion on social media? Tell me, They freak out, don't they? Everybody, even the quietest person in the world, goes all rogue when it's on social media. And you just attack and you roast and you come at them, right? Righteousness is an unpopular opinion. It's unpopular. Righteousness says that we respect the present and past presidents, regardless of whether or not we like the things that they do. Righteousness says that that we continue to not roast and to not be hateful, even though that's what other people want to do, and even that seems acceptable. If someone's not doing what you like, then it's your responsibility to vocalize an attack. That would be a secular standard, but righteousness stands in contrast to that, and it says that we choose to respect and give honor instead. Jesus is saying, don't be discouraged when people come at you for choosing righteousness instead of what's popular. What are some ways that you can choose righteousness instead of what's popular? Think about it. Today, right now, in your seats across the campus, starting a brand new semester, what are some ways that you can choose righteousness instead of what's popular? How about when someone starts to gossip, you ask them not to share with you? Or how about you send your money to a missionary instead of ASOS? What if you decided to take a lower grade instead of sharing your friend's work? What if you decided to speak positively about a professor instead of tearing them down? All right, so far we've kept it pretty nice, right? We've kept it pretty nice, good talk, right? And really, I think that I could end there. I think you've got this idea of righteousness being different than the world's standards and persecution follows as a result. I think you get that. But I think I've got to say one more thing. Can I get in your business? Can I get in all of our business just a little bit? If you said no, you can go ahead and check out. You're like, all right, I don't want to know my business. Feel free. But what if you aren't experiencing any persecution? What if no one is ever coming at you for your righteousness, your faith, for your beliefs? Is it possible that we're playing it so safe in our faith that no one, not even our roommates, knows that we have it? That's not the righteousness that Jesus is saying is a quality of his disciples. Jesus is talking about a righteousness that's lived out in the calf, that's lived out in the intramural field, that's lived out when we're at home with our parents and when nobody's watching. It's lived out all over the place. It's lived out when you're getting what you want. It's lived out when you're not getting what you want. This is the righteousness that's going to cost you something. A righteousness that can cause your marshmallow to catch on fire. Are you lightly brown? Maybe just a little golden? Are you even in the fire? I want to encourage you guys to avoid the popular choices this semester. Choose righteousness. Choose righteousness. Sacrifice. Stop spending all your time with your Chi Alpha friends and start reaching out to the people that make you uncomfortable, that don't act just like you, don't talk like you, but might set you on fire. Be willing to step out of what's comfortable and begin reaching out to the people that are desperate for Jesus, and they don't even know it. I think that's what persecution and righteousness can look like. It all comes down to this. Jesus is telling his disciples, don't freak out when you're uncomfortable because of me. When people treat you differently, look at you differently, avoid you, unfriend you, unfollow you because of me. Sadly, that's part of the package. And even more than that, it's a demonstration that the relationship that you have with me on the inside is starting to become visible on the outside. I'd like to take a couple moments and you guys go ahead and multiply into your different groups and begin to just kind of continue this conversation a little bit further. Hey, I love you guys. It's been so great to be back with you. Looking forward to an incredible semester.